Hello, once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our virtual classroom. Let's go ahead and get started. Today's lesson is going to be 19-3, which is rate of speed. Rate of speed. Again, I do recommend that you pause this video as you copy down the heading and the notes as well, and then continue so that you're able to follow along with me. By the way, we are not doing number 4 after all, and number 10 is just a bonus. Anyways, so yes, today we're talking about rate of speed, otherwise known as average speed. And I know that you've been covering this in your science classes, so it's good that you get to have two different perspectives of the same thing. So rate of speed or average speed, and that's essentially two variables. It is the distance traveled over a specific unit of time. It is a distance traveled over a specific unit of time. And remember, the word unit means one. So the distance traveled over a one specified unit of time. And so the formula for that is really distance over time. Distance over time. Or you can see it as distance divided by time, but we're going to get a little bit more in depth here in math, not just saying distance divided by time. But that is our word fraction. We're gonna have distance on anything having to do with distance will be in the numerator. Everything having to do with time will go in the denominator. An example is whenever your parents are driving, if they're going 40 miles per hour, realize that that actually means something. It's miles, 40 miles, that is a distance, right, per hour, meaning per 1 hour, that is a time. We have miles over hour, distance over time, 40 miles in 1 hour. Now, a practical example of this is if somebody goes 500 miles in 8 hours, again, that is 500 miles in 8 hours. We have miles in the numerator. That is our distance, 500 miles. And we're comparing miles to hours, distance over time, miles over hour. Now, the ratio given to us of miles over hour or miles per hour is 500 miles over 8 hours. But again, since we want to get the rate of speed is the distance over a specific unit of time, we want to know, well, how much is traveled in 1 hour? We want to make this into an equivalent fraction, right, like we usually do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, basically we have to ask ourselves, what do we need to do to the 8, to the denominator, to make it into 1? And here we must remember this math hack. Okay, listen carefully, that anything divided by itself will always equal 1. So 8 divided by 8 will give us 1. 8 divided by 8 will give us 1, right? And that's true of any number. If you have 1.2 and you divide 1.2 by 1.2, guess what? That's also going to be equal to 1. All right. So in that same regard, if I take 8 and I divide 8 by 8, if I do 8 divided by 8, that's going to give me 1. But whatever I do to the denominator, I must also do to the numerator. 500 divided by 8. Let's go ahead and work that out. We have 500. We're going to divide that by 8. 8 goes into 56 times. Yes. 8 times 6 is 48. We have a remainder of 2. Bring down the 0. 8 goes into 20 twice. That's going to be 16. We have a remainder of 4. We have a decimal because we're done. Bring down a 0. 8 goes into 45 times, so it's going to be 62.5. So that means that we are going at a rate of 62 miles, 62.5 miles in 1 hour. I'm going to round that up to be about 63 miles per hour. So in theory, if somebody is moving at 63 miles for 1 hour, they will have traveled 500 miles, a little bit more, but about 500 miles. Now let's understand what that means. Okay, if you are going on a road trip and you travel from here to Dallas, that's about 500 miles, and it takes you 8 hours to get there, your average speed is going to be 63 miles per hour. Now, that does not mean, ladies and gentlemen, that you are going 63 miles the whole way necessarily. Think about it. As soon as you get into the car and your parent hits the accelerator, you know, assuming they're just going straight, they're not going to immediately be going at 63 miles an hour. You know, you're not just going to be like, oh, 63 miles per hour. No, it's going to take some time to speed up to that, right? You know, what if they get to a stoplight? They're going to have to slow down and stop and then go again. Maybe there's going to be some traffic. Maybe you're going to stop and eat. But if you get there in 8 hours, if you cover those 500 miles in 8 hours, that just means that you may have been going faster sometimes, you may have been going slower other times, but your average speed was 63 miles per hour. It's as if you had been going 63 miles from the very beginning and you stopped. And if that doesn't make any sense, hopefully that's not super confusing. But for our purposes, this is going to be our answer. Our average speed is 63 miles per hour. That is our unit rate. Having said that, let's go on and let's go into our OneNote. And let's talk about number 2 here. Let's talk about number 2, which of course I already did in class, but let's talk about it nonetheless. Let's figure out the rate of speed for this mousetrap car. So this mousetrap car is moving at a rate, or rather it covered 5 meters in 1.5 seconds. 5 meters in 1.5 seconds. I kind of messed that up. There we go. So 5 meters in 1.5 seconds. And we want to know what is the average speed. All right. Remember, speed, we want, that's going to be, well, what are our 2 units that we're using? Well, that's going to be our distance, which is meters, over time, which is seconds. That's our average speed, distance over time. So we see here that we have 5 meters in 1 second, but no, in 1.25 seconds. Sorry about that, in 1.25 seconds. But we want to know, well, what is the distance? How many meters are covered in 1 second? All right. Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, to make anything into 1, all you have to do is divide by itself. So 1.25 divided by 1.25 is going to be equal to 1. 1.25 divided by 1.25 will give us 1. And if we do that to the denominator, let's go ahead and do that to the numerator as well. So 5 divided by 1.25, and let's see what that's going to give us. So let's work that out. 5 divided into 1 and 25 hundredths. Now you will remember, hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, that we do not like decimals on the outside, on the divisor. We do not like decimals there. So I'm going to go ahead and make this into a whole number. Now it's 125, but I must do the same on the dividend. It's 5. The decimal's right after the 5. So I'm going to move the decimal 1 2 times. So now we really have 500 divided by 125. All right. 155 fits exactly 4 times into 500. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this vehicle, this little mousetrap car, is moving at 4 meters per second. 4 meters per second. And this should look very familiar. We have our unit rate right here. We have our ratio that was given. We have 5 meters in 1.25 seconds. And that gives us a rate. And then I solve, how can I get from 1.25 to 1? So it's 1.25 divided by 1.25. I do the same thing in the numerator, and I solve it, and that gave me 4 meters per second. Okay, 4 meters per second. All right, so give me 1 second, guys. I have to. All right, so having said that, let's go ahead and do number 5 as well. Let's go ahead and do number 5 as well. All right, number 5. In number 5, we see that there's a mousetrap car that is going to cover a track that is 15 feet, but her car will have traveled 1/5 of the track. So 1/5 of 15 in 0.5 seconds. All right, so in other words, the whole track is 15 feet long, but in 1/5 of the whole track. So 1/5 of 15, remember of means multiplication. So I can do 15 times 1/5 is going to give me, 15 times 1 is 15 divided by 5 is going to be 3. So notice how right here they've already separated the track into fifths. So 1/5 of the track is really just 3 feet. And it's going to cover 3 feet in 0.5 seconds. So again, let's write down the information. So we're comparing feet and seconds, and we are going to cover 3 feet in 0.5 seconds. 0.5 seconds. And now, of course, we want to know the rate of speed. So we want to know, well, how much is covered in 1 whole second. Now, there's 2 ways of doing this, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, we can always just divide 0.5 by itself to get 1, because 0.5 divided by 0.5 is also equal to 1. And I must do the same thing to the denominator. To the numerator, 3 divided by 0.5, and see what that gives me. Or in this case, 0.5 times 2 is also equal to 1. So I could also multiply 3 times 2. Notice how both of these are going to give me the same answer. Let me show you. So let's try 3 divided by 0.5. So I'm going to move the decimal over once, move the decimal over once. So that's going to be 5 goes into 30 exactly 6 times. So in other words, if the car is moving at 6 feet per second, notice that 3 times 2 is also equal to 6. Both of these work. So yes, the vehicle is moving at 6 feet per second. All right. If it covers 3 feet in half a second, it's going to cover 6 feet in 1 full second. That's exactly what I just figured out right here. If that's a bit confusing, I encourage you to rewind the video, watch this part again, and notice how, again, we're going feet per second. We have 3 feet in 0.5 seconds. Well, how many feet in 1 second? We can multiply it by 2, you get 6, or divide by half, you still get 6. Same thing. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to try number 7 on your own. And if you get number 7, go ahead and try number 10. If you guys have questions about those, I will address those on in class. Okay, so hopefully you found this video helpful, and I will see you next time.